So good afternoon, everyone. My name is István Lengyel, and I will be holding today's webinar, which is a What on Earth is BeLazy Doing webinar. Just a quick check whether you can hear me all right and whether you can see my screen. Can you type something into the chat if you can hear me all right and you can see my screen? All right, excellent. Thank you so much. This is great. So thanks for joining today. If you're okay with that, I will just share the screen and speak. This time it's sweltering hot here in Hungary, and it's just really hard to stay focused on a camera as well. So let's start. This webinar is about the basics of BeLazy, why we created that, what are the types of companies that this works for, what have we done over the last couple of months or even a year, as we already had a webinar with the same title back in September last year. So one of the things we need to clarify is what's the underlying thinking behind BeLazy. And this has nothing to do with the technology. It is just what kind of companies this is working for. And the underlying thinking we have is that you've got customers who send you projects that arrive in your inbox, whatever, if it is an email or most likely it is a vendor portal or a translation management system. This is valid for the LSP and the translator use cases. Obviously, with the enterprise, it's a bit different. These projects need to be accepted, and the equivalent record needs to be created in a system that is holding your business information, finances and vendors. And this is the one that you will be using in order to assign a vendor later and give the work to the vendor. This system is sometimes called a business management system, sometimes a translation management system. And again, in other times, I've heard people call it ERP or CRM as well. There is plenty of names to that. And then the vendor needs to work either in the customer's translation management system, or if there were files that you could access, they need to process the right files and send it back to you. And then finally, the project needs to be delivered. This is fairly straightforward, but not everybody works the same way. So regarding the project acceptance, for example, not everybody needs that. Not everybody stores everything in their business management system, and the vendor assignment is very often not automatic. So if your company fits or you fit this working habit, then BeLazy is probably for you. And what it is, it's a cloud-based, secure middleware integration platform that integrates various sources of work and manages projects. And what we got over the last couple of months is that we are getting to the stage where we can say that BeLazy is becoming a virtual PM, more or less, that for predictable flow of work, it is able to do a fully automated work, which can definitely help a lot with your PM team. So it's able to take work from vendor portals, from translation management systems. You can put work from emails into the business management system that it supports. And it also gives you the possibility to connect your business management system, which is your XTRF or Plunet or Protemos, into other systems through an API. I like to mention that there are three types of automation. And when we talk about the automation technology, these are the main areas. The first one is the linguistic automation, which is the machine translation, which is something that even can be the subtitling software, which is actually dealing with the documents, dealing with the media that you are translating. The second one is the transaction automation, which is connecting different systems. This is the content management system automation. This is the translation management system and the vendor portal automation. So BeLazy definitely falls into this category together with companies like iLangel or Xilio, or WordBee has a tool for CMS. And BeLazy is the only tool that is for translation management system and vendor portal integrations mostly. And the third one is the process automation, which is within systems. This is when you use, let's say, an autopilot in MemoQ, when you use a widget in MemSource, when you use process automation in XTRF, the automation manager in Plunet. These are all examples of process automation within systems. And regarding this kind of automation, what we've seen is that a lot of companies don't automate. And why is that? Because it's very often a privilege of large accounts. So there's definitely regarding the transaction automation, which is not the same as the machine translation, but even there, you have the privilege of large accounts being trained, MT corpora, much more than small companies. With a large account, you are able to benefit a lot from automation. I mean, this is trivial. But what happened so far is that we've seen that this kind of an automation was the privilege of these large account teams, and these teams have hired either solution architects or subcontractors to come up with solutions. And because of this, we've seen some large companies, for example, with multiple integrations to the same systems, and all of them being suboptimal. It used to be expensive to start because you need development. And besides having a development, you also need error handling, you need a database engine in there, and so on and so forth. Up to this day, approximately 80% of BeLazy's development budget goes on the architecture, whereas 20% goes on the actual integration between systems. And then finally, there have been barriers to entry, because if you don't have developers or if you don't have the knowledge of product management, then this used to be really, really hard to do. So let's talk a bit about BeLazy's potential users. Like, who are the companies that could benefit from BeLazy's use directly or indirectly? And you can see that I have highlighted with a bold typeface the language service providers, because our offering currently is the strongest on this in this area. So corporate buyers who have to do a lot of internal work with translations, they are able to integrate the content sources, they are able to integrate customer portals, they are able to integrate financial payment systems. All these integrations are possible, and BeLazy has the APIs to integrate content sources into translation management or business management systems. What's the outcome is that if somebody uses such an automation, which also allows them to submit work through BeLazy, even today, to translation companies, then they will be much more efficient in outsourcing. Given that we do see the content across the supply chain, they can also ensure compliance with the SLA, which is quite important for the procurement. And they also have an entry-level outsourcing technology. So just to give you a bit of an idea, what we are looking at is how we can integrate additional functionality through BeLazy to existing technology stacks of corporate buyers, or how we can use open source software in order to make the simple corporate use case very easy to introduce. With the simple corporate use case, when you need to have a translation management solution or a translation memory solution at least, in order to assess the costs and maintain the quality levels. And then finally, the benefits are that they are able to introduce continuous localization, microtransactions, and supply chain automation. The supply chain is the language service providers and the linguists. And for language service providers, we allow out-of-the-box integrations with translation management systems. So a job comes to you as a language service provider. It's picked up from your customer's system. There is nothing the customer needs to do in order to allow you that. And then you push it into your business management system and you manage it there, and you outsource it to another vendor, which can be another language service provider, a single language vendor, or a linguist. And when you outsource it from your, let's say, from an XTRF or your Plunet or your own system, there is a vendor portal where they can pick it up. And this is why we also support vendor portals. So we actually have already technology to support the entire language service provider part of the supply chain. And we have made a lot of improvements, and we got to the stage that we can offer a virtual project manager, which is actually helping the real project managers to do the repetitive work. And the benefit is PM automation, the supply chain automation as well. And there's another thing, that if you have your own system, then it's a single integration. So if you have built your own business management system, which a lot of companies have, then you don't need to integrate separately different translation management systems. You integrate BeLazy and off you go. Everything we support, you support. And then finally, you can win more projects like this. So that's a big benefit that we see. Regarding the virtual PMs, I mean, in the world, there are already a lot of projects going through this at large LSPs. So I know for a fact that, for example, one of the LSPs that is in the top 10, they are churning over 40 million euro worth of work without a human PM ever touching it. And finally, linguists who are in a very disadvantaged position in the supply chain, because they need to work in the customer's translation management system these days, because they are online systems and they expect you to work there. They need to take the project from the vendor portals of the either the large MLVs or the SLVs. And finally, they have a capacity limit. So you can only do as many words in a day. There's no way you can do more. So where we are heading is helping also the linguists with offering a personal booking assistant that is able to fill up your capacity as a linguist, that is able to prioritize work that you like. And this is not a virtual PM, this is a virtual assistant, something that a linguist most likely cannot afford otherwise. And the benefit is the reduced project administration time, obviously, and the automated filling of the capacity. You don't have to be on your email every minute, every 5 minutes in order to confirm if somebody sent you a job. And that is reduced stress and more focus on the actual work. So we are now going to move into the LSP use case. What are the current business management system integrations that BeLazy offers? Right now, out of the box, if you have Plunet, XTRF, or Protemos, you can have a virtual PM. But there are some prerequisites. For Plunet, you need to buy the BeLazy connector package, which is sold at a cost of 150 euro a month. You need to ask Plunet to give you this. Obviously, they don't charge for the trial, but they do charge later. For XTRF, we do support both the smart and the classic projects, but you need the APIs. Now, previously, the API of XTRF was always a paid service. Recently, they made a decision to offer a certain usage of the API for free. On the pricing page, for example, it is already shown that it's free. And therefore, you need to just talk to them, like what are the prerequisites of getting the API if you don't have it. And finally, Protemos, the new kid on the block, gives you an API which is available for free for all the users. So there is no actual prerequisite. Anybody using Protemos is able to use BeLazy, and the configuration is immediate. We do have a fourth integration just for the record, which I didn't put here on the slides, which is LBS suite. There is some kind of integration, but as the financial data don't move through, at the moment, it is looking for customers. So if you use LBS or you know anybody that uses LBS and would like to support this development, but by giving us heads up, please let me know. Now we talked about the BMSs, and now the next thing is the translation management systems. By translation management systems, we usually mean those systems that are used by the customers. But sometimes it's not the case. Sometimes it is used by you and you just want to have extra integration. I will talk about that in a minute. So if your customer uses MemSource or uses Global Link, Smart Link, MemoQ, or Localize, you're able to automatically pick up work no matter who created that. You're able to reassign the vendors, and you're able to deliver the work as needed. For MemSource and MemoQ, these are tools that are very popular with LSPs. I mean, basically the only one that is really very popular besides this is SDL Trados. And because of this, tools like Plunet and XTRF have already come up with their own MemSource and MemoQ integrations. However, what you need to see is that these integrations take XTRF, take Plunet as the center piece. And then they create a project from the equivalent XTRF or Plunet project in MemSource and MemoQ. Now, there are ways for projects to be created in MemSource and MemoQ. Just think about their client portals or the MemSource widgets in the first place. Those projects end up in MemSource directly. The customer can send you projects in MemSource at least. When you've got a vendor and a client relationship, the project automatically appears in your instance. And this is not picked up by either the Plunet or the XTRF integration. And then you've got content connectors, which some of them are free and available to everyone, and others are paid for. Because the projects are created from the documents in XTRF and Plunet, there's also no way of splitting documents. With our integration, you can actually split up big documents into smaller chunks and send it over to XTRF and Plunet in multiple batches. Project packages. This is something which is very specific to MemoQ because MemoQ supports not only its own project packages, but also multilingual SDL PPX packages or star transit packages. Now you just create an online project from this. And if you got a package with 50 languages, let's say, you don't need to type in the analysis individually in Plunet or XTRF. For these items. And then finally, there are some projects that are generated by the API directly in MemSource or MemoQ. We also take care of this because what we're looking at, is there a new project in my MemoQ or my MemSource instance? So these integrations currently don't cover these very frequent scenarios. However, if you, for example, decide to, you already have an XTRF or Plunet into MemSource or MemoQ integration, but those don't cover these use cases and you would need these use cases to be covered, you can actually turn to BeLazy because we made the integration work in a parallel way. So both the existing integration and the new integration will work, giving you the best possible user experience. We do this by monitoring what projects not to pick up so that we don't create it again. So just imagine that if we didn't do this, then you create a project in, let's say, Plunet. Plunet creates the project in MemSource. We monitor MemSource. We see there is a new project and we create it in Plunet. Now that's something that you want to avoid. Because of this, you're able to decide on rules, what type of projects not to create. And because of that, the two work seamlessly together. Just for the record, this is, for example, from the Plunet website, how the integration works from Plunet into MemoQ. And that means that you upload the source files into Plunet all the time, and Plunet is managing your MemoQ project rather than the other way around. So what are the current vendor portal integrations? We support quite a lot of them. We support XTRF and Plunet's own vendor portal, which is obviously the commonplace, but there are very few companies that have implemented an integration with these. We support 3 vendor portals of Lionbridge LCX and TMS, and also Jira for the Google work. We support also 2 from RWS, both of them the Moravia side. One is Symfony, the other is Simlight. We support TransPerfect's global link system. We support BeLazy's Junction system. And besides that, we also support Transline and Translated.com's portals. So right now, let's stop for a second. And I would like to launch a poll. And please tell me which business management system do you use currently, and which translation management system do your clients use, or do you use, and which vendor portals do your clients use, and also what percentage of your projects come from these systems. I'll give you approximately a minute. So we are getting the last votes. I would leave approximately 15 seconds more. So please cast your last vote. Great. I'm closing the voting now. Excellent. I just noticed that in the preparation of this poll, I managed to leave out Plunet from the list of systems. So maybe the other commercial system was Plunet. If you could maybe just put it into the chat whether I'm right with my assumption or not. I listed a lot of the smaller ones, but definitely not Plunet. So as you can see, there are some companies that use the custom ones. I mean, just have a look at the outcome. So SmartLink and XTM are reasonably popular. Many MemoQ users. I'm surprised by what the overwhelming amount here. Lots of Plunet vendor portals and some other vendor portals as well, as you can see. But for the there are 2 types of companies here. For some, this kind of automated work is the minority, and for others, this is the majority. And obviously, for those companies where this is the minority, then we also have a package for that. So maybe you are interested in just getting prepared for this kind of a work. So let's move on. And there was one company that mentioned that they have their own business management system. And for this, we offer a single API. So any system that BeLazy supports can be integrated with your business management system. What's more, BeLazy also has another API that allows new connections. So if you want, you can build new connections, and even those make it to your business management system with the same integration. This is cutting a lot the development time for all these integrations, and it covers the entire scope of functionality. What we are trying to do is hide the complexity of the system integration. And what we are trying to do is remove the stress from the development teams, because we've seen that these systems change a lot. There's always an update. There's always something breaking. And we think that the development teams at LSP should be dealing with something else. what you can see is that integration takes about 80 to 200 hours of work on average. And you can also use this API for simpler things like integrating into Google Sheets. And then it's not 80 hours, but more like 20 minutes, more or less. And for large companies, we also can do the integration work ourselves. I mean, by large companies, I mean companies that have an own set of APIs that we can use, which is on par with the ones of let's say, XTRF or Protemos, which is obviously not every company has. So here I'm showing you this Integromat, which is one of those tools that we use a lot. And I think that from this screenshot, you can see that it's very simple to build things. So for example, here you are watching a new approved project. Was there something approved in BeLazy? Some project came in. We are listing the new projects and we are adding a new row to the Google Sheet. We can also similarly take, for example, a Shopify and watch the objects. And from there, if there was a new object, create an opportunity in BeLazy and offer it for you. So then you've got, even if you've got, let's say, an XTRF, you've got a Shopify integration there. So there are many things that you can do here with a tool like this. So how does it work? What makes BeLazy special? We use APIs to integrate with the business management systems. We crack the APIs of XTRF and Plunet and Protemos, and we need an API in order to connect to a business management system. But for the vendor portals and the translation management systems, we most often don't use the APIs. Why is that? Because some of these APIs, for example, the MemoQ one, would give you administrator rights. Now, how many customers would ever give you administrative rights? Others have a problem with missing functionality. For example, SmartLink does have an API, but what we've seen is that nobody could make it work for such a scenario where it's for the vendor. So there are several reasons why we are not using the APIs. I mean, we want to make sure that you get the same treatment as when using the graphical user interface. And for browser-based systems, there are APIs internally in the website. And what we do is that we are actually using these. There are some supported scenarios on our website. You can see what kind of scenarios we are supporting. And then finally, as I mentioned earlier as well, BeLazy is a platform. So it sits in the middle. It connects to the BMS. Once you have a BMS connection, you can connect things into BeLazy. Or there are many things connected into BeLazy, many vendor portals and translation management systems, but you need to connect BeLazy into your business management system. So we can actually have any combination. And there's another thing. If you're using BeLazy, you're also future-proofing yourself, because even if you change another platform, but you're happy with the integrations you have, those integrations will continue to work. So after all this talk, let's have a look at BeLazy in action. Right here, I'm just adding a new connection into BeLazy. This is the BeLazy interface, which is a MemoQ admin connection. And I'm going to integrate that into XTRF classic projects. What you see is that I'm adding a URL, username, password. These are things you always have at hand. After I've done that, the system identifies that it's automatable, and now I need to automate it. I'm going to use the weights in my XTRF instead of those in MemoQ, and there are some analysis settings. And now I will spend some time preparing my XTRF. What you will see is that it's about 2 minutes until I prepare the system for usage. And what you see here on the interface is just one example, because if you do it with Plunet or with Protemos, it's slightly different. If you do it instead of MemoQ with MemSource or GlobalLink, slightly different. But what you get is first, you get the configuration of your business management system connection. In the case of XTRF, you need an admin token, an access token. and you need to install a macro. In the case of Plunet, you need to do some preparation with the workflow, like entering into the workflow template, entering the names of the workflow steps. You need to create an API user. So there is a little bit of work to be done in each of them. Protemus is actually the easiest, probably, but it's never more than 5-10 minutes. So now the macro is also installed, and you need to tell BeLazy the ID of the macro. And that's all. And then finally, what BeLazy does is the mapping. So we are looking into the MemoQ connection, downloading the projects, seeing your existing projects, and then looking into your business management system and seeing the rules there. So what I did is, first of all, this project exclusion, so that the XTRF MemoQ integration doesn't pick things up. And now we needed to create a name for the projects in XTRF. Now we need to say who's going to be the customer if I've got a new project. Obviously, in a business management system, you'd have to name your customer. And then I said that it's going to be end client and euro, but based on the client name, I'm going to create a different one for the big beverage company. This is the specializations, which in MemoQ is things like subject and domain. And I need to map them to the right one in XTRF. And then comes the workflow. So when it comes to a 3-step workflow in MemoQ, which is always translation review 1, review 2, which workflow do I choose in XTRF? And the translation step is going to be called translation. The review step is going to be editing, and the review 2 is proofreading. And what about the units? So when I have word in MemoQ, it's going to qualify as a source word in XTRF. And finally, the rates. Where do I put the 101% matches? They are going to be indicated as an X-translated match. And then you can even have the linguists assigned individually. So you can say that, for example, if I select in XTRF the test translator X5555, that translator is going to be assigned in MemoQ as myself. It was my name. And this is how you set it up. So this is something we do together with our customers or with people who are trialing. So don't worry if you didn't follow it very much. And then after that, the project is automatically created here. And you can see that the actual MemoQ project has been taken over. The right client has been selected. The instructions have been copied over. The job instructions for the vendor have been also set correctly. The workflow is selected in the right way. All the receivables, all the payables are set up. So all those things that project managers used to do manually can be now automated here. This is here the workflow graph, and this is where you can actually start the project. And these are the analysis-based price items, and these are the price profile. The prices would come from the price profile, which I haven't filled out here. And then under the workflow for each step, you also have the payables, what you pay to your vendor. Let's not worry too much about this, but rather move on. And you mentioned, you heard me speak about the virtual project managers. Why did we start talking about that? When we used to talk about project creation earlier, which is like a project comes, you accept it and you create it in your business management system. And we used to talk about project automation, which is like reassigning, and which is about reassigning the vendors in the translation management system and closing the project, closing the tasks, uploading everything. But the project managers have had many, many requirements towards the system. For example, they wanted to have a monthly collecting project. They wanted to have, for example, certain workflows should not be uploading anything to the customer's portal, things like that. They wanted to have different projects bundled together in order to achieve a minimum fee coverage, so you don't outsource to the vendor until you have enough work so that you don't have to pay a minimum fee. And what we did is that we followed their advice, and we have implemented a lot of improvements in the system. And I'm actually very pleased to tell that it's becoming human parity for well-defined projects. And how is the actual usage? How do actual users, which we have like north of 35, 40, look at BeLazy? So the project auto approval is super popular. This increases their sales. Many of them use BeLazy to sell more, and all of our customer spending is growing. And that is very much proportional to the projects that go through. Since last year, a lot of the users moved from project creation to full project automation, even though it's still minority. So it's still around a fifth of the projects, but that's also because some of them did not implement the full project automation in their own system. And the biggest users we have are usually those with their own systems. And they have also implemented several no-touch workflows where the project managers only monitor the projects but don't touch it. And everybody starts the deployment with the project creation. That's what I can tell by now. But very soon, within a week, if it's XTR for Plunet, or within 1 or 2 months, if it's their own development, they usually move on to the project automation. The usage is gradually expanding. Customers start small and they grow bigger. And on average, they say that currently this saves about 50% of the project manager's time on a project. So let's talk a bit about the return on investment and the pricing. And this is something where we are actually changing our model. Previously, we had a pricing based on the percentage of the revenue of a project. And because that is very hard to relate to the return on investment, to the actual savings, what we started looking at is how much a project managed by a human is costing you. And what we want to do is save up to 70% of the costs of the human PMs here. And we started offering packages. The initial package, which is the 200 euro package, it's not saving you an awful lot, but it allows you to prepare. So for those companies that said that 10% or less is coming from portals, you can prepare, you can do things that will actually allow you to take on more work and gear up your sales in order to compete with those customers that you couldn't compete with earlier. And the higher value packages are more for the volume. So we've got, for example, a package for 500 euro for single language vendors, which is offering you a lower cost, and for multilingual vendors as well. So we've got everything covered, and this is a typical amount that our customers pay in a month. And these are all related to tokens. So what we found is that an initial project setup is a couple of minutes, let's say 10 minutes, 8 minutes, from one language to another, from one source, one target. Adding additional target languages is a fraction of this. And it's like 15%, 20%. So what we did is that we decided to base the number of tokens used on the number of languages. And we also decided to base it on the revenue per language. So you've got a 1,000 euro project into 10 languages, that's 100 euro revenue per language. And that is actually the middle category for us. Why did we do this? Because we want to be super cheap for those projects where you are actually already losing money. So those projects that you only earn 5 euros, 10 euros with, but managing it is costing the same amount of money. And this was the way to do that. And then another thing that's important is that we also provide service. We provide consultancy service, we provide sales support service, and these are part of every package. And the onboarding starts already in the lowest fee package. And if you don't see the system that you want supported in BeLazy, like SAP or the EU institutions or the United States nations and Facebook portal, then this is how you can do that. First of all, you need to decide like how much you're willing to spend and how urgent is the project for you. So what I can tell you is that a new connection for us costs up to 20,000 euros, and development can be done more or less within 4 months. Then you can decide if you want to deal with a task force, which is more like a friendly gathering of different companies, but it's relatively much work, or you just want to buy the new integration, which is obviously very easy. And we will guarantee the success. So what's important is that we don't want you to fail. Your risk is limited, because even if this integration cannot be made, we will not take your money, and we will never take more than 2,000 euros. But the point is, we have always managed so far. Every request was fulfilled. So it's very unlikely, but it is still possible. Let's say with some multi-factor authentications, there is a higher risk that something would break. But even there, most likely we are able to find a solution. So if you want to start working with BeLazy, then just drop us a line on the contact form in the website and discuss the use cases, and we will help you set up the connections and provide consultancy. And then once you are ready to go, we will only charge you for the projects transferred. Just before we wrap it up today, I would like to ask you to give me some more answers, if you don't mind. 1 second. So what are your business challenges today that keep you busy? And if you want to introduce the project management automation, would you know where to start? These are very interesting insights. I will give you another 10 seconds, and then let's look into this. Okay, here are the results. So what we see is that the most popular business challenge is streamlining the project management. And if you need help in this, we can also help, like understanding how something can be automated. The second one was machine translation and linguistic automation, which is not our specialty, but I see that it's very, very popular here. And then introducing the project management automation. I mean, obviously, we are happy to help in this. There were only some that wanted to improve the vendor management, which is also a very important area. And the minority have talked about the rest of the challenges. And what's very good is that all of you have seen how to introduce project management automation, or where to start. And the majority of you said that you needed to streamline and document the processes, which is very good. I'm really glad to hear this, because this is something that sometimes it's hard to admit, but it's true that most companies need to harmonize, to streamline a bit of a process in order to do this. Do you have to wait until you do this? Not really, because what we've seen is that once you get your hands dirty, things are happening faster. Automating the vendor assignment is also an important thing. And just a good tip that I've heard before is that some companies decided that they would offer a slightly higher rate, let's say a 3%, 5% raise to those vendors that would accept automatically assigned projects. All of a sudden, this worked with the translators. Changing the BMS is a typical area, and I'm curious, what action do you need to take in another area? That would be really good if you could just put it into the chat. So I'm also curious if you've got any questions here, please put them into the chat or the Q&A panel, and then I'll be happy to answer them. Apparently there is no question. And then finally, I'm saying thank you, but I'm also wanting to ask you one more question here, which relates to our planning. So whether we should hold a webinar in July, because the fact is that it's pretty much significant work to prepare for such a webinar. And we obviously want to have many people there if we hold one. So this would be the last question to you. Wow, nobody's on vacation. That's very interesting. And please also feel free to suggest topics. What are those things that interest you around the field of project management automation? Any ideas put them into the chat, please. So excellent. I mean, while I'm not promising yet that we will do a webinar in July, this is giving very good input. Thank you very much. And then we are reaching this end of the session. Thanks again for joining. And I hope to see you, well, either at the webinar or one-on-one. Have a great day, and thank you again for joining. Bye-bye.